Alright, let's go! Hi! I'm Amy Cosplays, and I wanted to go through absolutely everything head to toe on my brand new Cold Snap Furia costume because I wanted to, and a few people are asking me, oh, how do you do this? How did you do that? And they might not necessarily know the character, but it doesn't matter because all costumes of a similar look will kind of be put together the same way. And I think this would be really helpful just to see like how I put it all together, because it might help you with whatever build you're doing. I know I've gotten help from a lot of people throughout my cosplay life. So I just thought it was time for me to give back. So here we go. I'm gonna go head to toe. That's what I've decided to call this, head to toe. So of course we're going to start with the wig. So now of course my wig has been living in a wig bag for a while, so it's a little bit rat nesty, but I'll still talk about how I put this one together. So I bought this wig from eBay. You can get some decent stuff from there if you know how to buy. I really need some help. Oh my god. Keep in mind that oh Jesus. Keep in mind that this is a knotted mess, and it looked way better earlier than when I put it on. So this is my Cold Snap Furia wig. I bought this wig off eBay for about $22, $23, I think. So it wasn't too bad. That's actually very cheap considering how much wigs cost nowadays. I'll show you the inside. It's got these expandable tracks in here. I try to steer clear of wigs. I mean, most of the time your wig will be built like this but then have a lace front instead of a hard front at the top. But the reason why I chose a hard front instead of a lace front was because there were literally no lace front wigs available in the color that I wanted. So I thought for this particular costume, the color for me was very important. She had to be blue. She had to be matching blue, and all the other blues that I saw in the lace front were just not right, and they had roots, and it was just not what I wanted. So I opted for the hard front, and I did have to do some maneuvering because of that. Anyway, now these tracks in here are stretchy ones. So basically you're gonna have a little bit more stretch in there aside from a netted cap. What I did for her is I just teased out the entire thing. Oh boy, she looks like a mess, doesn't she? One of those wigs that you have to really wear. Solved it. Here we go. Beautiful. So for this one, for this wig, I teased out the entire thing. I just went ham, and it was a crazy mess and it looked awful. But that's kind of what you want to do with a wig because it really needed volume. And if you'd seen this when I first got it, this was just a flat curly wig, just totally flat. So I just teased it up to get all this air in it, and then lightly brushed kind of over it into the style that I wanted. And then I swept it around the side. I did a little plait, but it was pretty easy. Like, this is all teased in there, and I absolutely doused it in hairspray. I probably used maybe half an entire can of hairspray on this, but it still kind of fell out a little bit. It needs a little rejuve, but you know, you get the idea. A little clear band in there. But basically, like, the main point of this wig was to tease it out so it had lots of air in it, and also figure out how to disguise this hard front as well. And I did that by kind of bringing this other side. You kind of see how, you know, you can see all of this hard front here. So I tried to bring the back of the wig over the front like this to kind of disguise it, and that will kind of hide all your hair under there as well. It's a little nifty trick. Bring some hair. You want to hide it as much as you can basically, because you just don't want that hard front in the way. All right, that's our wig done and dusted. Back in the bag you go. Bye, Furia. See you next time. Now, I want to kind of lay it out on my bed, so head. There you go. That's the head from head to toe. Bodice. Next up, let's see. This is the, whoop, fallen down a bit. This is the bodice I created for Cold Snap Furia. It likes to fold in on itself, but it sits like this basically. And I've also got another attachment up the top here for the neck, because I want to close that up there. Ta-da! So that like is secure around my neck. Now I'll explain how I put this together in as much detail as I can, because honestly making this whole thing was a bit of a blur. It's made from Lumaflex. Ooh, if you can see kind of inside it. Like that. It's made from Lumaflex, which is a thermoplastic similar to Warbler, which you might have heard. I heat molded this on top of a mannequin. Now the mannequin was way too small for me. Normally you can just kind of heat form this over a mannequin and then go, yep, perfect, like fantastic, and then chuck it on if it's your size. But the only one I could get a hold of, which I borrowed from a friend, thank you friend, one that I had was definitely not my size. It was maybe a size 8, and I think I'm pushing a size 12, more like it. So I had to make some adjustments in there, and I basically opened up the side completely. If you can see that, these giant pink, oh my gosh, this is hard to open up. These giant pink foam bits over here, and me opening it up basically. So I just added that in. So this entire bit here that's flexible on the side, that's actually not Lumaflex at all. That's all foam there. So after I molded that, I went to go add in all these details. So the foam paneling, let me come up a bit closer for you. So I have these detailings like around here and on the edging as well. That's all foam clay as well. So that's basically like a clay that you can mold and do whatever you want with, and then when it dries it sets like foam, and then you can sand it, you can cut into it, whatever you want. So that's what I used for all the edging. Basically just put it on, molded it, it stuck to it perfectly. I don't really have any bits and pieces coming off, which was really, really helpful. The next bit of detailing I did was I had to measure and cut all of these little panels that came all around the side. They're actually on top of the Lumaflex. That's like a 1mm craft foam, which I just stuck on top for the detailing there. Now we'll come around to the back. This is my attachment method. I did the D-ring method, which is very common for these kind of builds. It can look a bit messy from the back, but I feel like this is my only option, especially with the wings. I molded Lumaflex basically around all these D-rings to kind of keep them really secure, and it works quite well because, as you can see, that like it can support the weight of it, but more importantly it really needed to support the weight of the wings as well. But basically all I did was, let me show you, it kind of acts like a corset in a way. So I just got myself some blue ribbon and laced it up at the back, and that way you can fully take it off. You don't have to pull it over your head or anything like that. And then you can just tie it up like a corset at the back. It's super duper easy. It's a great attachment method to use for all of your cosplay needs. I also have, let me think, what else can I say about this? I've got a little attachment up the back here as well, just to keep my neck secure. It also keeps like a nice open look as well for the collar, so it kind of hugs your neck a bit nicer. And one more thing about the inside, I've also got some Velcro. Oh my gosh, this thing is so freaking hard to open up. Oh, struggles. Here we go. And I've also got some Velcro in there as well, under here and around the sides. And that is for the skirt to attach to, which I will talk about a little bit later. Oh, and the paint job I should mention as well, my paint job, was kind of a mixture of spray paint and acrylics, also a lot of sponging as well. I wanted to do these like white kind of frosted effects, which I did kind of all over, but they've kind of blended in a little bit, so they're not as noticeable as I had hoped, but I mean, you can always update it later. Perfect. I don't know what else to say about this, so we're gonna toss her to the side. Are you sure you want to sit here, Kat? Because I'm gonna put stuff everywhere. You're gonna be right in the way of everything. Okay, next piece. If we're moving down to the shoulders, then we're talking about wings. Okay, so I'm just picking up one wing because there's no real point having more than one. But I wanted to talk to you about how I've made this piece as well. Also, it's been living in my car for the past couple days, so some of the feathers are like flipped up, but we can just heat gun them a little bit later, so don't worry about all that. But basically, we have a PVC pipe core all throughout this, so both wings look identical, so that's why I didn't really need to show you the other one. But what I've done is I've heat formed it into this curve, and it's curved up here again as well, and then out like that. And then of course we have all our feathers coming down out like that and all the rest of it. But I'll talk about heat forming here because I did run into a little bit of trouble. Also, don't mind my like cable ties here. They're from like weapons check. Don't mind them at all. So, what was I talking about? I lost my train of thought. It's gone. Heat forming. Oh yes, I had trouble heat forming. Basically it needs to be really hot and you can only really do small places at a time. So it does take a while, and I originally heat formed it about up to here, and what happened was the piping wasn't quite strong enough, and what happened was I would put it in I would attach it. I'll talk about my attachment method later. I will attach it, and then the whole wing just kind of went blah, like it just bent. And it was like almost touching the floor, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I can't walk around like this. I was a little bit scared actually, but we figured it out. Basically, I've just coated the bend here in Lumaflex, that thermoplastic. So now it's just much more solid. I will mention it because I tried it. It didn't really work as good as I hoped, but I did it anyway. I actually managed to put some self-expanding foam inside the piping too, because I thought that might stabilize it a bit if I took out the air and the space inside it. And that worked to a degree, but not as well as I'd hoped. And then I just did the Lumaflex over that, and I figured that kind of worked a little bit better. Now let's talk about our feathers, our winglings. Now, of course, I'll talk about the blue wings. Now, this material is called polypropylene. It's basically just a plastic sheet, which is really cool, which is dyed. Just a good old dyed plastic sheet. We actually sat down and designed all of the little wingtips in Adobe Illustrator, and then got it sent to a machine cutter, which cut all of these pieces for me, which was just amazing because it turned like a 2-week job into a 10-minute job, which was just absolutely incredible. And of course, because the sheeting is already dyed, there's no painting or anything needed at all, which was just immensely helpful in creating this build. I've also, let me just duck under this wing for a little bit. I've also done some like frosted painting. This is just acrylic paint. I thought it would be cool to make it look like all frosty and stuff. So that's just a little bit of paint there. And I've also glued these feathers together so they don't flap around. I'll mention as well, because I think this is pretty cool. I'll flip this up. These are all just hot glued in. Facing the wrong way. I do have LEDs in here, but you can't see them. So there's no point. So what I did when I attached all of these plastic sheets is I heat gunned the pipe and I just cut right down the middle and I stuck them in, like wedged them into the slit that I'd made and then hot glued over it, and they stayed in a treat. They don't move at all. I will mention as well the feathers on the top. This is a 1mm craft foam. Now, as you can see, as I mentioned before, they're flicking up a lot. They have been doing that since day one, and it's very, very annoying. If I had done this build again, I probably would have gone for a 2 or 3mm foam instead, because this is just not really stable enough to be its own thing. I thought it would be, but I was wrong. So yes, if I were to remake this, I would probably definitely redo that, and I'd probably pay a little bit more attention to my paint job as well. I feel like these are a little bit rushed towards the end, but you know, we can't have it all. It's got to be done. It's got to be done. I want to talk about my attachment method too for those wings. I went for the corset method. This is a corset that I've just bought off eBay. It was actually off Wish, I think, instead. It was not expensive. It was maybe $15. I don't know how they make these kind of things for that cheap, because if I were to make my own corset, it would have been... Like, I've made a corset before and it's not easy. It's very difficult. So I don't know how the heck they make these for that cheap, but oh well. I guess the fabric's really cheap, but anyway. So you want to get yourself a really good strong corset that fits. And by fits, I mean like it fits snugly around you and you can close it completely. Like no back showing, like actually the sides meet. That's where you want to be, because it needs to be very secure to support the weight of the wings that you've got there. So what I've done for this is I have sewn these giant channels. So for example, the boning channels that are in your corset are, you know, maybe like 1 centimeter long. They're not very long, so you can just fit the boning in. Whereas I've made like my own channels, if that makes sense, for the wings basically. So I've measured that and I've just sewn them in. They are just calico. They're not that... I know that's very hard to see because it's all white and stuff. Just trust me. Trust me. So it's basically like sewing in giant pockets for your wings. Now, be aware, it will kind of... It won't be good on your back. Probably be safe. If you have back problems, probably don't do this method. But if you are strong enough to support it and you've got good core muscles, go for it. Because it's it's very simple. It's very easy. Harnesses scare me. And I also don't want harnesses showing in my costume too. And this was a very kind of open costume. So I don't think I could really fit a harness underneath that whole like bodice piece. So I opted for this instead, and it also seemed a lot easier, and it was easier. The reason why I've chosen calico is that it's a quite strong material, like, and very cheap for how strong it is, to be honest, because it's just pure cotton that hasn't been treated. That's why I went for this one, because it's the cheapest, the strongest, cheapest. Yes, that makes sense. But if you want to go even stronger, you could also go buy a cotton duck, but that is, you know, a lot more expensive, and everyone, you know, seamstresses always have calico lying around and they're happy to just give it to you because it's so cheap. It's like, what, $3 a meter, so, you know, it's very easy. But that's how I did my wings. in the pile. This is like the only thing that isn't blue out of my whole costume. There you go. Next piece, I'm going to talk about my braces, these guys. Now, they're not very exciting, I'm sorry to say. They are 1mm craft foam wrapped around into an arm shape. Very, very basic, super basic. Just measured my wrist, measured my, like just below my elbow, made a trapezoid pattern. There it is. I also had to do a little attachment. That's just Velcro in here. Did some contact cement there. Easy as that. Super, super simple. I used foam clay. I used foam clay for around these edges and here, this detailing here as well. That's all foam clay. You will need to keep your piece if it's going to be stretched or moved or curved in any way. The foam clay will set stiff. So I made the mistake with this one. I had it open like flat. I can't open this totally flat, but I had it open flat and then I did all my detailing and then I went to go put it on and it all just cracked. I was like, okay, awesome, great. So just remember to do your attachment. So you can put it together like this and then you can go through and do your foam clay on top of it while it's in position. So then that way you won't get any cracking or anything like that and you will be good to go. And then of course, rinse and repeat for the second one. Next costume, and this one I prepared earlier. This is my Pyre blade. I am very, very proud of it. Sorry about that weird jump cut. What happened was I had a lot of light come in my window and it totally ruined all of the settings that I had on my camera. So good times, good times. Here is my Pyre blade that I was talking about. It is probably my favorite thing from this build because it took me ages. I counted 20 hours on this one thing. I'm very proud of this one. This is the first time I've done anything stacked. Is I think 5 layers of EVA foam which are stacked. The middle layer has a PVC pipe core running through it just to give it a little bit of stability, even though, I mean, EVA foam's pretty solid, but I mean, it never hurts to have a little bit more stability in there. So there's a PVC pipe inside it, in the middle one. You know, you cut a gap and you like stick it in. My cutting was terrible. So I actually had to spend hours and hours just sanding and like reshaping it. So my number one tip if I were to redo this would be absolutely cut properly. Keep an eye on it. Make sure it's nice. Like please, like stick to your pattern. Use your pattern piece instead of something else you've just cut out. Just make sure your cuts are perfect because you don't want to be like me and have to freaking sand for months just to get it the right shape. So then I had it the right shape and then I have to do all these detailings here as well. Now, basically all of this is foam clay. The only thing that is not foam clay is this blue. That's it. That's the only thing that's not foam clay. Everything else is hand molded by myself. I tried to replicate all these little bits and pieces that are around it and this gem in the center and all that sort of thing. And the other side is the same. So I had to redo all of that. These bits are foam clay, that's foam clay, that's foam clay. All hand molded by myself. It took forever. It took so long. And then the painting on top of it is spray painting. So I spray painted the whole thing, this one base color, and then I went over and redid a bunch of it in acrylics. As you can see, there's like 5 different tones of blue in here. So I needed to redo that a few times just to get the right colors. And then over that, I went through with my frost detailing as well to make it look frosted, which doesn't read on camera as much as I had hoped, but just trust me that in real life it looks frosted and lovely and awesome. there's my Pyre blade. And it's not too heavy. It's a little bit heavy. It's not too heavy to hold. It's fine. But when you're spending the entire convention, like holding it out like this, kind of makes your arm a little bit sore. It's like, you know, it's not too heavy, but it's a couple of kilos. I'd say it's 2 or 3 kilos. I would say it's 5 kilos probably, which is okay. I think it's the best I could do for what it is. There you go. Next prop. This is really funny because these look huge when I'm not wearing them. It's like, girl, damn, why are your underwear that big? This is the underwear I made for Furia. It is totally white fabric that I had to fabric paint to get it the right color because you cannot buy this kind of detailing. It's because she has like this dark blue edging all around it, which you can see, all that dark blue up the top and the sides and all the rest of it. You can't really buy a fabric that looks like that. It's just not a thing. Ideally, I would have liked to have some screen printed fabric because all of the fabric paint totally ruined the elasticity of the fabric. So when I went to go put it on, it was just nowhere near as stretchy as it was before. So basically when I had put them on for the first time to test the fitting, I was like, great, this is awesome. And then as soon as I painted it, all of that just went out the window. They did not fit the same and I had to readjust them after that. So that was a bit painful and I would have preferred screen printed, but we all don't have the money for that. So some of us got to fabric paint our lives away on some giant underwear. That's my story of the underwear. Next bit, thigh doodads. That's all I've called them is thigh doodads because that's all I can really think of. They're kind of like thigh armor a little bit. So I'll talk about the outside and the inside. These ones were pretty simple to make. I think I made them in about a night, not including painting and all the rest of it. Of course, this is a foam. I believe this one looks like a 3mm foam. I've got some detailing up the front. This is basically just another 3mm foam added on top with the 1mm foam detailing. Let's move that. The 1mm foam detailing up the top there. And then of course painted. But I wanted to talk about the attachment. Oh, all my hair's in the Velcro. The attachment of this was a bit weird because the character design, it's just totally bare at that point. She doesn't have suspenders or anything like that, which of course is a recipe for disaster. If you're a human woman who has to walk around all day, these just rub against each other and they just fall down like straight away. So what I had to do is some sneaky suspenders. This one will be on the left and it's here. And these guys, this one's on the side. So I chose a blue ribbon for this one because I felt like it would blend in with the costume a little bit more. And then that way that'll hold it up and they won't fall down all day. But then I've also got a elastic here as well for the back. So the back was covered by the skirt. So that way you won't see this black one, but the elastic is much better at holding it up. Whereas because this one has no stretch in it, it's just going to hold it at that point and that's it. It's not going to it's not going to let you walk basically. If you need extra space to move your leg, it's like, nope. And that's going to, there's a possibility it might come off. So we've got to be careful about that. And I've got the elastic there. The elastic is way more forgiving because when you walk, you'll be able to move with it. I will also mention the attachment method for this. You can kind of see here, I've had to I've sewed the elastic onto a piece of non-stretch fabric. So that's the satin ribbon that I used before. So I've actually sewn that onto there and then glued it down because you don't want a stretchy piece of Velcro because every time you pull on it, there's a chance it might fly off. So that's why I've opted for the sew-on method because then you can stretch and it'll be fine. Did the exact same thing on the other one, and they actually, I've got a little safety pin here. You do them up and you safety pin them to the corset like that. So that way the attachment is hidden, you can't see any things, and you don't have to wear anything extra. That's all hidden, no one will know where it's attached to, which I think is a little bit sneaky, but I like it. Ta-da! That is my thigh armor bits. Oh, I should mention one more thing. I've done another Velcro attachment here. Super easy, just Velcro on the Velcro. It's not that hard. It's very simple. Simple, really. Yeah, now I've also got more Velcro in here, which you would have noticed. That guy, and that guy, and that guy. You'll hear what that's for a little bit later, but basically we need to attach more stuff. But you'll hear that from me in a moment. Next one. All right, guys. This is the half skirt or the butt cape. I like to call it a butt cape. Basically, sits around... Ugh. This one is the one thing that really took a beating at the convention. So it sits around like this, and then you stand in the middle of it there, basically. Ta-da! So I'll talk about the detailing that went into it. This is the inside of it. Because, of course, we can see the inside when you're standing in it, it had to be just as beautiful as an outside would be. What I've done is I fabric painted this whole pattern design that's meant to be there. From all of the reference pictures that I saw. I've also got these spiky doodads at the bottom. Now these are the same 3mm pink foam that I've been using for the rest of the costume. I contact glued them down, and then I've done foam clay over the top just so they blend in with the fabric a little bit better. I'm still not totally happy with them. I think it could have been a little bit nicer looking, but I mean, I'm not mad at it. I'm happy I got it done. Mention as well the structure, because you probably can't see it. It's pretty invisible. I have boning in the bottom right here running through, and I have boning in the center and boning at the top. Now that's how it keeps its shape all straight and flat. If I didn't have boning, it would just fall to the ground and it wouldn't be much of a cape. Butt cape. Wouldn't be much of a butt cape if it didn't have boning, because it needed to stand up on its own, basically. It needed to come out and like flare out, so that's why I had to put some boning in for that. Now I'll talk about the outside. This is what's displayed. It was all foam clay. As you can see, it got a little torn up at the convention. This is all foam clay detailing on the top. And while it did stick to the cotton, which is good. Oh, I should have mentioned that the fabric is a cotton broadcloth, I believe. Cotton broadcloth. Pretty standard, just blue cotton. I wanted to use like a standard, like strong fabric for it. Anyway, back to the foam clay. I did foam clay on here and I held it in position as I was adding the foam clay so that it would curve the right way, as I mentioned before with the braces. But unfortunately, through traveling, I think putting it in my car and things like that, I did have a few little breakages. You can see up here and up the top, especially anywhere where my body curved or that sort of thing, I did get some breakages. Now these are very easily repairable because you can just glue these back together good as new, and then you can't even see the seam. You can paint over it. So it's a very, very easy fix, but it's just something that I haven't gotten around to yet, so forgive me. I've also done that frosty, painted look on the outside as well. This one probably, this bit probably got it the worst. I think I curved it a little bit too much. I'm going to need to re-glue the fabric down on this bit because look, it's like, oh, it's all coming off. But that's okay, it's fixable. It's fine. Everything can break as long as I can fix it. So that's good. I'll talk about the attachment as well. I've got Velcro lined all the way around here, and that just because it sits right under the bodice. And of course, as I mentioned before, that's the other side of the Velcro that was on the inside of the bodice. So basically when you put it on, it sticks to all of the spots in the bodice, and then you are good to go because it'll just sit there all day. I did have a few, you know, malfunctions where it kind of slipped under, but it's super easy. You just kind of tuck it back up there and you'll be fine. Oh yeah, and I have another little Velcro attachment to like stick it together at the front like that. To stick it together at the front like that so it like sticks together. Ta-da! Just like that. Anyway, that's it for the skirt. Next piece. These are my leg dudes. Ta-da! Leg dudes. This, I'll start with the boot. This is a shoe that I bought off. I bought this shoe for $15 from an op shop, and it's, I mean, all I needed was a basic boot heel, and that's what I got, so I'm happy with that. I've painted the shoe design on the heel. I've done the blue edging and the top, and I did try to do that blue frosted design all around it as well, ta-da, which seemed to work, and that way I can just, as you saw before, I can get my foot all the way down and into that. Super easy. I've also put some gel inserts in the boot as well, so it makes your feet all nice and comfy all day, so you don't have to worry about hurting yourself in high heels. If you're not experienced wearing high heels, probably not a good idea to wear heels for an entire day, let alone with wings as well. I don't know how I survived, to be honest. I think I was just running on adrenaline all day. Now this is the same fabric that I used for the underwear, and of course I had the exact same problem where it stretched up really nicely and I was like, perfect. And then I fabric painted the entire thing. It did lose a lot of its stretch and it did cause a few like fitting issues where it kind of like scrunched up a little bit and it didn't look so good, but that's okay. We live and we learn, and we'll just do better next time. It's all good. So the way I've done this is I tried to do a gradient kind of effect. It was meant to be grey, but with some blue tinges and things like that. Let me hold it up so you can kind of see. So basically had to just paint in stages, trying to like blend the two together, which was really difficult. It took me a long time actually to do these ones. And I've got little Velcro tabs up the top, and these will attach to the inside of the leg armor piece as well. So that's super easy to attach and put on. And I've also attached it to the boot down here. I've just put a little bit of elastic. I've just hand sewn it on here and the other side, hand sewn it on both sides, and then pulled it under the heel so that's nice and snug and that won't move at all. I also made this extra little boot piece, which is just a little Velcro attachment, just another little icy piece. This is the same thing, foam, and then with foam clay over the top, with the detailing, and then a strip of Velcro in there, and basically, and then that just sits there like that. So then your boot is, ta-da! So that's it. That's the last piece in the pile. So that was the entire costume, head to toe, for Cold Snap Furia. It was a labor of love. It took a long time. It was 116 hours over about 5 or 6 months. Yeah, it was a long trek, but we got there. We finally got there. It's a lot of work, but I'm at a point where I'm happy with it, even though there was still a lot of things that I would change. I'm still okay with how it turned out, so that's the main thing. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in, and hopefully you learned something, or maybe have some new ideas about how to attach your costume, or some just little detailing things. Happy to help. Please send me a message, put a comment in if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer anything. If I've missed something, please let me know. Thank you so much, and I guess I'll see you next time. Yeah, we'll catch up soon. Bye. Alright, Schneeb, we're not allowed to go up near the lap. Nope. You can only, if I see you move, I'm gonna fucking crack it. You have to sit there.